9.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay.
Well, I mean, I can do it here, but
Let's go to bed and we'll do it.
All right, good morning, Dreamers and Doers. Carolyn here, coming at you live from the Loveworks Leadership Campus just outside Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, where we believe you are never too young to be a dreamer and never too young to do your dream. And it is really weirdly quiet in here because we're used to having hundreds of middle school students running around here. But guess what? We know most of you guys are home today. There's not school. And we thought, what a perfect time for Loveworks to come to you. And so if you guys will go ahead, interact with us, put where you live and what grade you're in on the comment. So even if you are an adult, I want to hear from you too. That's 18th grade. I'm really glad that you guys tuned in with us and stick with us because you're not going to want to miss all of the free stuff that we are going to give away today. That's right, I said free stuff. Parents, like I said, if you have a middle school or a high school student and they're not awake yet and you're tuning in for them, thank you. If you will let us know where you live and what grade you're in, that would be awesome. But I wanted to just take a moment because this is big. Thanks again for tuning in. This is, as we say at Loveworks, a ring the bell moment because today we're going to be launching our at-home leadership courses. It's going to be for ages 11 through 17. and it's free. And so we've taken all of our unforgettable experiential learning leadership lessons here from Loveworks, and today we're going to make them available to students across the country. And so we want you to join in with us and discover your potential and live into your dreams. And so, again, like I said, welcome to episode 1 of Link with Loveworks. And we know that, I know personally, I love to surf the web. I know other people do too, and it can be so addictive going from one link to the next link to the next link, and somehow I've seen probably every single quirky picture that's ever available online because hours and hours have gone by. And so we thought, what if we gave our students a moment just to plug in an online leadership way, and of course it's created just for them. And so you might be wondering, you've been seeing this image around for a little while, you might be wondering, what does LINK stand for? And so LINK stands for launch, because we're going to help you launch into your dreams. Inspire, because we're going to inspire you by helping you see other people who are brave enough to have pursued their big dream. Nourish, we're going to nourish you with content, different videos and exercises that are going to challenge you to grow. And then Kindle, because we're going to kindle a community of students from around the world who are committed to making a difference. And so each week we're going to be releasing a new episode of Link on Mondays, and you're going to meet a new guest who's going to inspire you with their unique story and how they reach their dream. And so we hope that these stories will launch you from where you are to where you want to go. Hey guys, if you're just tuning in now, if you guys will leave your name, where you live in the comments, and what grade that you're in. I'm not sure, I might be in like 14th or 16th grade now at this point in life. But in just a few minutes, we are going to give you a free code to start at-home leadership. And it's the perfect time to grow your leadership a little bit every single day. And so all you need is access to a computer, about 20 minutes in your day, and you can work at your own pace. So some of you guys may get up with the roosters, like with our first guest speaker today, and some of you guys are going to be more like me and bedheads that's going to rock it out later in the day. But the best part is that it's learning, it's growing in our leadership and boldly pursuing our big dreams each day and at our own pace. And so before we start our episode today, I wanted to just take a time to recognize that, of course, the times and circumstances have changed all around us. And some of you guys that are watching may feel like, not much has changed at all, and others may feel like everything has changed. And I'll be honest, this is really new to us here at Loveworks, but leadership never takes a day off. It doesn't go on hold, and so we're really glad that thankfully it doesn't need toilet paper either. But either you're growing or you're stagnating each day, and so we wanted to help you guys find purpose in the middle of the pandemic, and we're here to help you with the steps each of the way. And so as we get ready to hear from our first guest speaker, I think the clues were pretty telling, but if you want another clue, we're going to put out a poll real fast in the comments. If you guys would let us know how many miles do you think are in an Ironman race? Because we're going to hear from an Ironman triathlete today. So we want to hear from you guys. How many miles do you think are in an Ironman race? No Googling. I know your phone is right there, but see if you know it from just off the top of your head. I get tired thinking about it, getting up that early to swim and then jump on a bike. And then I guess like in wet clothes, run for miles and miles. First person that gets the answer correct, we're gonna DM you. We are gonna send you a book, a free leadership resource, and an actual physical book. We'll actually mail it to you. So super excited and just getting ready for our guest speaker today, and his name is no other than Michael Hirsch. And so if you guys will drop an emoji, just any emoji that you want to welcome Michael, and let's meet him, because he's the executive director of Loveworks Leadership, which is a nonprofit based in Norman, Oklahoma, with a mission that believes a person is never too young to be a leader. And since its inception, Loveworks has worked with over 12,000 students, and it has helped launch 2 student startup companies, Real Tech and Real Kitchen Salsa. In his spare time, you're going to find him training for his next triathlon, his 10th full Ironman race this year in Oklahoma, or not in Oklahoma City, in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Michael's been married to Sayla Hirsch for the last 13 years. They've got 3 zany, adorable kids, Naya, Tinsley, and Anchor. His favorite food is sushi. Michael, me too. Very rarely will you see him without a Starbucks drink, and I know he's thrilled to be with us today. So let's welcome Michael. Hey, Michael.
Carolyn, how are you?
I'm doing so good. Hey, let me give you a high five, a social distance worth of high five.
That almost felt real.
I'm glad. Michael, let me tell you, so this is the first episode of Link, and we're going to be having a guest speaker that's going to join with us. And we introed today with Hey Dreamers and Doers. And so that's what we're going to be modeling our interview after. We're going to talk about dreams first, and then we're going to talk about the do part of making those dreams happen. And so we know that you're an Ironman, we know you're a triathlete, but can you tell us, like, what was your first big dream?
Well, thanks, Carolyn. So my first big dream was to become an Ironman.
Okay, so, like, are you talking about Ironman triathlete, or are you talking about, like, Ironman Tony Stark Ironman?
I'd love to be like Tony Stark, but I don't think that he was actually created back then. But no, an Ironman is actually a particular brand of a race. So think of your favorite brand. It could be Apple, it could be Coca-Cola or Pepsi, but Ironman is the name of a brand, and where guys and girls from all around the world, they compete in a competition that they have 17 hours to finish. And so it's a combination of 3 disciplines: swimming, biking, and running. And I still wonder each of my races why I'm doing them, but I've absolutely just fallen in love with the sport.
I think you had probably at least a few people thinking that on this live right now, like, why does he do that? So when did this start for you? When did this dream start?
Definitely. So this gets into the why. So I was 9 years old, and I was sitting in the middle of my living room I grew up in Michigan, out in the country, and I'm watching TV. And I flipped on ESPN, and I watched a documentary about 2 particular athletes that were competing in a race.
So how did that inspire you, watching a race? Because I feel like I'll see that on the TV all the time.
No, you're exactly right. And so if these 2 athletes, were walking down your sidewalk, and there, of course, are a lot more people walking down sidewalks these days, which is great, you wouldn't necessarily think, oh, yeah, they're big-time athletes. Their names are Richard and Dick Hoyt. And what made this story worthy of a documentary is that Dick's son, Richard, was actually born a quadriplegic. And so even to this day, he's never been able to utter a single word. He's not able to use his vocal cords, but he now speaks through a computer, and he's never had the use of his legs nor the use of his arms. So
that is wild. That's incredible. So you didn't just watch this story, of course, on TV and, like, shut your laptop, but you actually did it then.
Well, no, you're right. I was 9 years old, and what do 9-year-olds do? They do it. And so I lived out the Nike slogan, and I had my bathing suit on. And so, not to be too descriptive in this call, but I mentioned I lived on a lake. And so I ran downstairs, and I ran as fast as I could off my dock, and I dove headfirst into the water. I swam not very far, but out to the raft, and so I touched it, and then I swam back to the shore. Ran up the stairs, put on a shirt and some tennis shoes, and I hopped on my bike. I lived on a dirt road, and so I rode from my driveway to the end of the street and back. At this time, like, all I want is water and food and want to pass out, but I knew I still had one more thing left to do, and that was to run. And I didn't run very far, maybe 20, 25 yards, but I crossed my first finish line, and I remember it just like it happened yesterday.
That is really, really fun. That sounds like I think that length of Ironman is something that I could probably accomplish, but would be just as exhausted. So I love that you said that you just did it, which, that really segues us perfectly into the do part of our dream, right? So you were 9 when you first did your first Ironman race, but when did you first sign up for your first official race?
Well, I have a confession to make. It was 7 years ago. And so it definitely wasn't soon enough. I have a regret that I really wish that I would have just continued to do it, and to pursue things and to chase things. But I put that on hold, but there's a life lesson here. So I guess I kind of borrowed a lesson from Colonel Sanders, who started Kentucky Fried Chicken, later on in life. But the life lesson is this, is that you're never too young and you're never too old to do your dream. You just have to get started.
I like that. I like that a lot. You're never too old and you got to use what you have. That's awesome. So 7 years ago, you signed up for your first race. How many Ironman races have you done now at this point?
It's still hard to believe, but through the support of my family and friends, we've now done 9 races.
Okay, someone in the comments needs to figure out how many miles that is. So 9 races. Can you tell us, like, you've done races in multiple places. Can you tell us what was the most memorable race?
Well, thanks. Yeah, so I have. I've done races in upstate New York, at Lake Placid, Santa Rosa, California, Port Elizabeth in South Africa. But I have to say that my most memorable race, a lot of memories in each of them, but I would actually have to say the first one 7 years ago in Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas. So it must be, is it the humidity that stuck out to you, or what about that race is so memorable?
I think I still feel sticky, Carolyn, just thinking about the humidity on that race. But what really sticks out to me is that was the race that I almost actually quit.
Can you tell me more about that story, almost quitting?
It wasn't very pretty, but here's the reality, and this is just a transparent moment, but anyone that's watching this and listening to this, right now, anyone that you look up to, any leader, any government, official, I think if they were honest, they'd probably say at one point or another that they felt like they wanted to give up and they felt like they wanted to quit. I just didn't expect it to happen so soon on race day. But sometimes just life happens. And so if someone hasn't figured out the math yet in our poll earlier, here's what happened. The cannon fired and I started swimming, and I had a decent swim. I swam 2.4 miles, and then I got on my bike and I rode 112 miles. I get off my bike. It was definitely feeling hard, and it was challenging. And I knew at some point later on in the marathon, 26.2 miles, at some point that I would probably hit the proverbial wall. But Carolyn, I did not expect it to happen at mile 3. I was only 5K into a full marathon when I felt like I wanted to quit.
So you're telling me after a 5K, which is that's when I feel really accomplished, that's when you were about to quit. So what, you kept going for what, 22, 23 more miles?
Well, I did, and there's a special story there. Again, I didn't expect that to happen. And so just like you mentioned earlier, that we are living in unprecedented times right now. It's very unexpected. I wouldn't have dreamt that right now we'd be doing a virtual call and we'd be launching a digital, leadership platform that we'd be giving to our students. But yeah, that was me. And so I sat down at mile 3 on the side of the road, the pavement, on a cooler, and I'm watching other athletes. It seemed like they were having, of course, the best day of their life. It was everybody's birthday except mine, and here's poor Michael, sitting on the cooler with my head down, ready to call it quits, when a volunteer athlete, and I knew he was a volunteer athlete because he had a finisher t-shirt, and I wanted that t-shirt so bad. And it's amazing what we'll do these days to get a t-shirt. And he walks over to me. I guess he was practicing early proper social distancing, so he didn't reach out to shake my hand. But here's what he said. He just asked me 3 questions. And the first one was this. He said, "Are you going to quit?" And I looked at him and my head was half down. I'm looking at him. I said, I think so. The second question, "Well, are you hurt?" Well, I wasn't hurt physically, but I wanted to ask him, does it count if I'm hurting right now, emotionally or mentally? Because it hurts really bad right now. I said, no, I'm not hurt physically. He said, then, last question, well, can you walk? So in other words, he was just asking me, he's like, you don't have to run. You don't have to be jogging. You don't have to be sprinting, but just do something. And then he walks away. And I thought about it. I'm like, what? I can do it. So what's the first thing I can do? I can stand up. So that was step 1. And then I started taking real steps forward, and, one step after another, and it didn't look pretty. It was ugly. I'm glad it didn't get caught on video. But eventually, though, that unpretty walk led to a jog and a run. And then with just a few minutes left, I actually crossed the finish line of my first Ironman. And I heard the words. It was the dream that I had at 9 years old. I wanted to hear those words. Michael Hirsch, you are an Ironman.
That is so powerful, Michael. Like, you have this person, almost like an angel, like coming and asking you, like, hey, like, are you hurt? And then asking, like, can you walk? And I think that's a perfect question to even ask ourselves, like, in our homes today, like, what can we do? And even if it's not, living per se, like normally as we have been, like, what can we do? Like, what is our version of walk right now? That's awesome. So, Michael, for our last part of our interview, we're going to be ending with a last minute link. And so with each of our guest speakers, we're going to give them 1 minute to link it all up and share with us in 1 minute something encouraging about doing your dream. And so let's start the timer. Michael, your minute starts right now.
Wow. Okay, here we go. So just a couple things that I learned from my time in doing Ironman triathlon. And I want to start here. And it's to finish what you started. The encouragement here is to finish, because here's the deal. 1 minute you are going to feel up, and 1 minute you're going to feel down. But don't trust either of those feelings. In other words, don't let your highs get too high and your lows get too low, but finish. And this is an amazing opportunity right now, depending on your perspective, that the one thing that we have right now that is so precious to us, it's a lot of time. What a great chance right now to finish something that you've been wanting to work on. And lastly, I just want to say this. The mantra of Ironman is that anything is possible. Anything is possible. I want to add my own spin to it, and it's this, that with hard work, anything is possible. So I want to encourage anyone that's watching this right now to get out there and to do your dream. It might be in your house right now, but that's okay. You can still do something.
That's awesome. So finish what you started, and with hard work, anything is possible. So that means I need to go pick up that blanket I've been knitting for the last year and actually finish that project, because now I have time. But thank you, Michael, for joining us for our first link episode. We are going to be doing a Q&A, so Michael's going to hang around with us for just a little while longer. If you guys will, put in the comments any questions that you might have for Michael regarding dreams. It might be what his workout regimen is, what time he wakes up in the morning, but ask him anything, and then we're going to get back to the Q&A at the very end of this. And so we're going to hold you just for a few more minutes, but I wanted to share with you, of course, our link and course info. And so this is the beginning of something new. This is at-home leadership, what we've been teasing for the last few days. And so Loveworks began 9 years ago, and our goal was to help youth discover their passion, their purpose, and to become better leaders. And we primarily did this with our after-school program that thousands of students have experienced. Each day, students would get a chance to experience both the leadership side of things and also project-based learning opportunities. And of course, with all of our activities and our after-school programming being postponed right now, we saw this as an opportunity to create a digital leadership platform that's going to be delivered straight to your home that you can work through at your own pace. It might be by yourself, it might be with your whole family, or you can do it even virtually with your friends. And so what the courses are going to offer you is everything that you're going to need to become to develop successful habits. And so you're going to develop a personal growth plan. It's going to equip and empower you to be a more positive and influential leader. And so we're going to ask you to do two things for us. Of course, the course is absolutely free, but if you guys will, please share this video, share this link episode, and then click on the link at loveworksleadership.org. We'll be dropping it in the comments, and register right now for at-home leadership. There's a little part where a parent will need to sign off on if it's okay for a student to sign up for the platform. And so they'll take a few steps. You can get started today on at-home leadership, and we'll be pushing out a new lesson each week. And so, Michael, let's jump into some Q&A, because I see there's quite a few questions in here. And so we've got one from Erin. She asked, what was the hardest part?
Well, there are a lot of hard parts. Erin, thanks for the question. I would say this reverts back probably to the training and not the race. Carolyn, you alluded to this earlier, that I'm the early bird, and it's those 4 a.m. and 4:30 mornings that I have to train. And those are hard, those are difficult. And I wish I could say that every single morning, that I wake up with a smile on my face and with joy thinking about the next swim, bike, or run or strength training that I get to do. And so I think that's the hardest part. I think that's been the mental battle that I've worked on overcoming, and something that I put into practice. And hopefully this can encourage you, Aaron, in regard to your dream, is I've just changed my vocabulary. And so even before I go to bed, I used to think, I have to wake up tomorrow at such and such time. What I've been training my mind to do is to think this: I get to. I might not feel it, but I've been saying I get to wake up at 4:30, and that's been something that's really been helpful for me to get both of my feet on the door and to get training.
Love that. That's totally flipping the script. What do I get to do today? Okay, so this is a question from Melissa. Do you have any pets? If so, what breed and what is its name?
Hi, Melissa. Great question. Yes, we have a little guy, and he's a Boston Terrier. And we may actually, just for you, Melissa, we may post a video that yours truly, Carolyn, put together with part of our team. And our little Boston Terrier, Lincoln, did his own swim, bike, run triathlon. So maybe we'll post that later. But yeah, he's our little guy, and we just love him.
That's awesome. Love that question. Okay, so this is coming from Angie. She asked, what would you say to other people who want to do an Ironman? Remember, Michael, this is coming from Angie, not Carolyn.
Angie, so anyone that's wanting to do, could you repeat that, the last part of the question?
Yeah, so what would you say to other people who want to do an Ironman?
Definitely. So I like to think in small steps and small increments. So in other words, Angie, I'm not exactly sure, your experience, if you've done any other types of races, but hopefully this will encourage you. I just didn't sign up one day for an Ironman and then train for one and then do it. I'm sure people out there have done it. Remember, the mantra of Ironman is anything is possible. But my journey, I started with the 5K. And so that was the first thing I did. I signed up for a 5K. It was a tough race for me, even those 3.1 miles that led to a marathon or a half marathon, full marathon, a half Ironman. And so, maybe that could be a starting point, but I'd break it down. I know that the Ironman can seem like big and overwhelming, but maybe the start for you, Angie, could be just getting out of your house and walking around the block, once a week. And then the following week, maybe it's walking twice around your block. But I like to start there, the smallest point, and just thinking about what is like one just simple step that you can take. And eventually I believe that you'll get there.
That is encouraging to hear. Just start rocking around the block. So this next question is coming from April, and she asked, knowing how busy you are, how do you get it all done? So you are you train for a marathon, you run a nonprofit, and then you're an awesome dad and husband. So how do you do it all, Michael?
Love you, April. I'm just going to soak in those words the rest of the day. I would just say this, not perfectly. And something that I've been really thinking a lot about, I actually had this in my phone and been talking about this with the team and my family, is that I'm just after progress. Progress over perfect has become the mantra for this upcoming race that I'm training for. So in other words, we don't have the perfect organization. I'm not the perfect husband and the perfect dad, or the perfect Ironman triathlete. But each and every single day, I can do something, might not be perfect, but to make myself a little bit better and to make progress. And so I think if we can look at it, with that perspective, all of us have a great opportunity right now, as I mentioned, earlier, to look at an area of our life. I've even been thinking about this, since I have this extra time, what is an area in my life right now that needs repair? Now, my wife might tell you that I need to get out there and change some light bulbs. So I don't necessarily mean changing light bulbs, but what is it right now in my life? Because I'm under construction. again, not perfect, just looking for progress. What can I repair with this extra time that I have?
Okay, we've got a few more questions here. I'm going to combine one of them. Nina and Dylan are asking if you're going to do more Ironmans in the future, and how many more may you do?
Thanks for the question. So I was asked earlier about a dream. The big dream is to complete 12 Ironman races. And so I'm currently, and there's a lot that's up in the air, of course, with what's going on, but I'm signed up right now for 3 Ironman races this year, one in Tulsa, Wisconsin, and Arizona. And if I finish those 3, then I get to qualify for what would be called the World Championship in Kona, Hawaii. And so that's the big dream. And Nina and whoever else asked that question, we'd love to have you join us in Hawaii to hang out at that race and experience that finish line.
That's big. Okay, I think we're going to have 1 to 2 more. So next question, this is coming from Remy, one of our students. He says, what would you do if you had a disease that made you hurt all the time? How would you figure out a way to be active and overcome?
Wow. Could you repeat the first part of that question, Carolyn?
Yeah, it says, what would you do if you had a disease that made you hurt all of the time? How would you figure out a way to be active and overcome? Wow.
Well, I think of the story that I mentioned earlier of, Richard and Dick Hoyt. And I don't know if this answers it directly, but what's really powerful about their story and how they got started into running and doing races and competitions. Remember, Rick Hoyt, he couldn't talk verbally. He couldn't use his arms or his legs. But when he was enrolled in public school, and when he was in middle school, he saw that there was another student, battling a medical condition. And that's when he asked his dad, hey, Dad, could we do a 5K race together? And so I don't know. I think, I want to answer your question. So it's really powerful is that, Richard, he took his eyes off of his situation and he looked at, others, and how he could reach out and how he can help and how he can make a difference in someone else's life. And so anyhow, I think that could be a perspective, that we can look at. And, going back to my cooler story, Remy, that I said earlier, the question that was asked to me was hey, can you walk? And so, maybe the encouragement here is what is one thing, that you can do? And it might not be, so anyway, that's where I would start. I'd look back at that question. What is the one thing right now that you can begin working on and start there and to see where it goes?
That's powerful. Okay, Michael, last question before we sign off for the day. This is coming from Sajid from Pakistan. He asks, how do you stay energetic and creative all the time?
Thank you, Sajid. You are so kind. Surround yourself with great people. I feel that's the key. I'm all about personal growth and development and self-care, but we're only as good as those who are around you. And so, for me in particular, my spouse is my biggest, cheerleader, my kiddos, but then, just those that you center yourself around with. And so from a social standpoint of friends, to your colleagues, someone said that, you are, a product, of the 5 last books that you read and the 5 closest friends in your life. And so I would say that that's definitely been the key that keeps me motivated and as joy-filled, as I possibly can be.
That is awesome. Surround yourself with good and joy-filled people. All right, so just a last reminder, if you guys will visit loveworksleadership.org to access at-home leadership, this is available now to you guys. And just remember that real leaders don't blend in, they stand out. And so dream big dreamers, because anything is impossible. So see you guys soon. See you next week. Bye.